Radio Show. I'm your host, Hassan Giordano, aka Mr. Politics, and today is the first edition of the program brought to you live from our studios located here in the historic Charles Village neighborhood, 2421 Maryland Avenue, and live stream exclusively from DMVDaily.news and on our social media pages, Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube at DMV Daily News. Joining me as usual is my right-hand man, Maryland's legal eagle, and the show's trusted legal advisor, of course, none other than Mr. Ivan Bates, Esquire. What's happening, Cap?
Hey, glad to be back, Hassan. How's everybody doing out there?
Yes, sir. And then we waiting for it. Now the tip jar just got, since we now here, and there's no excuse, Mark has to put $20 a minute that you are late. And so, yeah, he owes a pretty penny when he walks in those doors. Of course, making this happen, our producer, studio engineer, he makes all this happen, the live stream and everything else. Our main man, Jason Rodriguez, is also in the building. What's happening, Captain?
Peace and blessings, family. Just want to remind everyone we are now streaming live on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and as well on our website in audio if you want to listen to the audio portion.
And we want you to know that DMV Daily is now a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week news and podcast network. You can hear all and see all the latest DMV Daily media produced programs right at DMVDaily.news. Of course, the DMV Daily Radio Show is the station's staple evening drive time program. As you see, we have moved our time Monday through Friday, the new time, 5 to 6:30 p.m. We heard people saying, yeah, we were coming home and just getting off of work and we were just catching the tail end of the program. So we need y'all to extend it a little bit more, come on a little later. Well, we have done that. So from every day from now on, 5 to 6:30 p.m., and we will produce a DMV Daily morning show in the coming weeks, a midday program, along with a block programming with shows hosted by some of your favorite show hosts, such as Donnie Glover, Christina Flowers, maybe former Mayor Sheila Dixon, many more, as we open up the airwaves to all those looking to bring power-packed programming to the DMV. And if you enjoyed the programming we've brought to you thus far and look forward to us bringing you even more programming in the future, make sure you continue to go to DMVDaily.news, subscribe to the network and our social media pages, sign up to become a citizen journalist, or to host your own podcast program, either live stream like this show or podcasted and aired at a time and a day that you choose. We're still looking for advertisers and investors, so make sure you can go right to DMV Daily, sign up for that, and you can also still donate to DMVDaily.news on the website. This program, of course, is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors, such as the Bates and Garcia Law Firm, specializing in criminal defense, real estate, and bodily injury cases. Bates and Garcia is Maryland's legal dream team. You want to contact him today if you want your free consultation, 410-814-4600. And, of course, other sponsor, Politicon Strategic Solutions, successfully helping candidates get elected since the 1970s. Politicom has mastered the art of political communications to become Maryland's premier campaign consulting firm. You want to get elected coming up in 2020, make sure you contact them today, 240-242-7505. And, of course, SEIU 500, who wants you to know that Together We Rise is not just a slogan, but rather a blueprint for the future of the union movement. Visit them today at www.seiu500.org. Now, we got to get into this programming, man. I'm excited. We got our own studios. Only problem I got is I can't hear a damn thing I'm saying. Can you hear yourself?
Nah, I can't.
Let me see. I don't know. Maybe it's the headphone amp. I might not have turned it up. Is that what it is? Now I can hear myself talking.
Okay.
All right, that's a little better. I'm about to say, hold on, man. That's why I didn't think we were on the air. I was just talking and talking. Thought I was talking to dead air. All right, so we're on Facebook. So, family, you know what the deal is. Get on Facebook. You can ask us all the questions you want. We may have just went off of Facebook thanks to
right,
Mark.
Right.
I don't know what he done did.
Y'all need to
He tripped over the wires.
He done tripped over wires.
Safety inspectors in here or something. It's all right. I got my workman's comp code.
Well, you heard that it's $20 a minute when you're late here. So,
That's a new one.
I mean, yeah. So it's 18 minutes late. You do the math. Look, even your attorney didn't want to defend you on that one. So,
well, he's gonna sit down and say, and he's right. You got to sit down and give him notice of the actual amount
And I
first.
thank you, Attorney Big.
Now the $20 is steep, but now that we know it's 20, but you can't hit him over the head at the very beginning 20. It's
Okay.
sort of like the first day of school. No one gets homework the first day of school, but the teacher tells you, I'm about to give y'all homework the rest of the day.
Right.
And then that last time you'll never have homework is the last day of school. So we all know now. But $20, we got to vote about it. $20 is steep.
$20 a minute
Minute.
that you're late. $20 a minute. We got to go on live production. These people are waiting to hear from us. We say we're going on at 5 o'clock. They want to hear us at 5 o'clock. Not at 5:01, not at 5:02. And if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But make sure that you call in and let us know. We got a new call-in number. 410-819-2370 is the call-in number. You definitely want to make sure that you call in to the program if you want to talk about the conversation that we're talking about. If you got a question about something that we're talking about or any of our guests, call in. The number is 410-819-2370. That'll be streamed across the bottom as we go along, so you'll be able to have that number. But that is the new call-in number for the DMV Daily programs. So again, 410-819-2370. Of course, you can always go to the Facebook Live feed. You can always go to Periscope or to YouTube to be able to see that, hear that, and get involved now.
And we have a system that we can take multiple callers, so
Absolutely.
jam our lines up.
Yeah, we got, look, man, this is so fancy. Let me tell you something. I thought this was going to be easy. Yeah, we throw some stuff together. We'll move it to our own studios. We good to, man, if it wasn't for Jason and his technological wizardry, I wouldn't have knew none of this stuff, man. We got to hook up microphones into mixers, into computers. Then we got a online service where you can call into the numbers, just like Radio 1 was. Call in. We got different lines set up. You can call in. You can even text in. If you say, you know what, I don't want to call, I want to text in my question and or response, you can do that as well. It's, it takes a lot to bring these things forward. And look, we've been gone for 2 weeks now, but it seems like a lifetime. People have been asking where the 3 light-skinned brothers is at and when they come back.
Read the hard way.
The hard way.
We got a lot to catch up on. Our political analyst, Maya Rockymore Cummins, of course, she won the election last week to become the new chairwoman of the Maryland Democratic Party. We can talk about that. The city officially nominated his police commissioner, the guy who was, then he wasn't, but now he finally is the official nominee, Mr. Fitzgerald, and the people who are down in Texas right now vetting this young man. And then, of course, the Baltimore City House delegation had what appears to be the first pre-session town hall ever in the history of Baltimore City's city delegate. I don't know how that ever was the first one this weekend. DMV Daily covered that and streamed that live. And, of course, the chairwoman ran from us.
Did she?
For some reason, who knows? I mean, I guess because we call it how it is, but
She don't like your cologne or something.
I don't know what it is. Well, what it was is Andy Pierre, who's a part of DMV Daily now, actually was the executive director of the Black Caucus when Cheryl Glenn was the chair of the Black Caucus. He left. He wrote a scathing op-ed about the marijuana legislation that the Afro put up. Well, she went and interviewed with the Afro during the election and laid them out for putting this up. And they took it down immediately.
What kind of...
Exactly. And so I wrote a piece saying, what kind of crap is exactly what Mark just said? That is not something you do. If you're a publication, if you vetted this piece and you feel that it was factual, which it was, even if it was an op-ed, though. It didn't have to be. It wasn't an article. It's a big difference. And you take it down because a legislator told you to?
Please don't get me started on Cheryl Glenn on my first day back. Okay, give me more. I just can't with her. Not after all that hand to the face and all that.
It's
Wow.
yeah.
For those of you who aren't aware of what happened, even though I said don't get me started on Cheryl Glenn. And first of all, Cheryl Glenn is my sister in labor, and I respect her record on labor issues very much so. But she was an absolute embarrassment at this forum on Saturday. First of all, there was a gentleman who had a question, and maybe he was a little unruly, and he should have waited in his proper time and everything else. But part of the problem is there was a lot of pent-up frustration in the audience because she let, everybody and their grandmother make a 20-minute presentation about things that had nothing to do with the Maryland General Assembly or
Like
the
Johns
legislative
Hopkins.
agenda for Baltimore City delegation. Johns Hopkins talked for 20 minutes. Rudy Child must have went on for 40 or 45 minutes about things that had nothing to do with the Maryland General Assembly. So there was pent-up frustration from the audience by the time she got to the open questions period. And then they got the gentleman. The gentleman wanted to know why we were fighting so hard to keep Pimlico, but we didn't have any money for anything else. And she basically, kind of tried to shut him down because to be fair to her, he was speaking out of order. But she went into this whole, Shaniqua thing with her hand on her hip, and then she called security to come in. There was no reason. Security, that man wasn't aggressive or anything else. He was just speaking. She called security in there, and then as security is leading her out, the chairwoman of the Baltimore City delegation starts throwing up her hand and saying, "Talk to the hand, talk to the hand." I thought I was watching an old rerun from Martin and Shanae from 1993. Absolute embarrassment. We have got to hold our elected officials to a higher standard. Delegate Glenn, I love you like a fat kid loves cake, but you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Ashamed. Next.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you pretty much said that. But I'm gonna tell you something. There's a lot of sensitivity going on, right? And let's discuss this crap, right? Especially on social media.
I know where he's going.
Because these people are just trying to be relevant. They called me out. What's the girl's name? Paris, right? Who ain't got no problem calling me for anything else, right? But I wrote an article about our friend, Maya Rocky Moore Cummings, winning the election, right? And being the new darling of the progressive movement, right? Called her beautiful in the article. God forbid I should call a black woman beautiful. Now I'm the most sexist pig, or what she called me, that ever lived, because I actually had the nerve to compliment somebody. Somebody that I know. This isn't somebody I don't know. This isn't somebody I just said, you know what? She looks good from afar. I'm going to make this all stuff up. I gave her a just dues, and because of that, now I'm a sexist pig for, God forbid, calling her the darling of the progressive movement. But she is.
Well, now let me say this. First of all, now, one thing I do agree with is, Paris, if you have a relationship with Hassan and you saw something online that offended you, he clearly didn't mean to be offensive, so there was no need to call him out publicly. You could have called him and said, "Look, brother man, this, that." So when you called him out publicly, I cannot get on him for trying to call you back out publicly. But I will say this. Part of the sensitivity around women is that sometimes when you're describing women, you describe them in ways that you wouldn't describe a man, and that feels sexist to them. There was a little bit of this bubbling up around the Ricara article, when you said she just got finished working out the gym, she beautiful, she got on these red bottom shoes and all that.
What's wrong with that?
That you wouldn't.
I would love for a female reporter to say Hassan just got done working out. He buff and he fine. I would have no problem. That doesn't diminish who I am as a man.
But first of all, men and women are not the same. They have not.
I can't tell. Women said they're beyond us.
No, men have not traditionally been defined by their looks. Okay, so it's more offensive to throw in ancillary commentary, even if it's favorable, about a woman's looks when you're referring to her in a professional context. If you were judging a pageant, then talk about her shoes and talk about her hair and talk about her hips and everything else. But you are judging her in a professional context, and it's harder for women to get taken seriously when a purported news article about them refers to what they have on and how they
It wasn't about what she had on. It said she was red bottom shoes is what she has on. No. That you're talking about a different story. That was Ricara,
right.
And that was off of a reference that we had in a conversation between me and her,
right,
about liking that.
But nobody knows that in the article, is what I'm saying.
Okay, but here's the thing: Ricard had no problem with the article. Right?
the point.
Maya had no problem with the article.
Not the
Now,
point.
if they called me and said, you know what, Hassan, I have a problem with what you said, right? Because you referred to me in this and I feel like you diminished me, then God, I would have I said, you know what can I do to make this right? Can I go amend it? Can I go edit it? But when when you had dozens of women who read this latest article, who commented on social media and said, man, that was an awesome article. Thank you for giving us that educational article. For have one person to call it out on social media only because they want their gotcha moment. That's all it was. It was they wanted their Twitter moment to be able to say, ha ha, look at me. I'm standing up for women because God forbid he called her beautiful. Man, get the fuck out of here. That shit don't even make no sense. Yeah, we can.
Oh.
Yeah, we're not on Radio 1
I
no more,
forgot.
baby.
Never mind.
Now, we don't want to take it out of proportion. We might have children, so we don't want to
Don't
cuss
you
every
open the
other
door
minute.
because I'm storming through
No,
it.
you
Don't
can
play-
cuss. Yeah.
Hassan, your mom's gonna wash your mouth out with soap.
Yeah.
Oh, she's listening.
My mother does
She's
listen. I
listening.
ain't doing
She's
that.
listening. But you know, look, I'm gonna tell you something. It's pissing people off the extent that the Me Too movement has taken. Look, the "Baby It's Cold Outside" song that's been around for ages. Do you know that they took that down off the airwaves because the Me Too movement said it was predatory?
It is predatory. I mean,
Oh,
if you
it just
listen
started
the-
to be predatory this
No,
year?
If you listen to the lyrics,
Man,
it is
get the hell
predatory.
outta here,
I mean,
man.
listen to the lyrics on their face. It's
Okay,
basically
but you
you're
can
taking
take
this woman
anything.
hostage, okay?
You can take anything and make it to what you want it to
No,
be.
you really can't.
So it's become predatory now that it should be because
It's always been
the movement.
predatory. It's just recognized.
So we
more
just
as
shut it.
predatory.
We just shut
I
up.
didn't
before.
look. I like the song. I would not have recommended taking it off the air. But let's not pretend that the song is not about a predatory man kidnapping a woman. It
He's
is.
just saying, "Baby, it's cold outside. I ain't trying to go outside." What's wrong with
listen
that?
to the lyrics of the song.
Man, come on.
Just like
man.
Ring Around the Rosie is about children dying during the bubonic plague. It is. Ring Around the Rosie, pocket full of posies, because they would stuff posies in their pockets so they wouldn't stink. They're corpse. I mean, you got to get to what these songs are about. I'm not saying they should be banned forever, but, you know, let's be honest about what it is.
I think you're just taking it way too far. You can't say what you want to say these days without somebody who thinks that their comment means something now because of social media. And God forbid you gave everybody a platform, even those who don't deserve a platform, to jump on social media and have this, you know, woe is me or higher than thou type of platform for them to start calling the stuff out. And it's just becoming overwhelming. Sometimes you just got to get a life. Seriously, a 700-word article, you're going to take 3 words out of it and say, how dare you? Come on, man. Get out of here, man. I'm sorry. There's some things, I know I'm wrong, right? I know that there's a lot of things that I'll do that people call me on, and you know this. I will admit to when I'm wrong. Even if I don't, you know, all the way backtrack it or things, I admit to it and the person will call me on it, cool. I mean, me and Delegate Glenn has done it plenty of times. Hassan, why didn't you call me on it? You know, we've had this back and forth. Fine. But I'm not bound to some pressure like that. Somebody who just wanted their little 1 second of fame on social media. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna. But anyway, I think we got a little too far with people and their sensitivity, and we got to bring in Ivan, man. He's sitting there like, what the hell y'all talking about?
I'm just sitting back, taking it all in.
I haven't got to go home tonight. He ain't going to
I've
say
been
a
in
word
London,
about that one.
and I've been in London world 2 weeks. Good gosh.
And speaking of Maya, so I don't know if y'all saw DMV Daily today, all right?
So can I just say something really quick?
Yes.
The articles that Hassan posts, just so that you all know, do not necessarily represent the views of his co-hosts on the DMV Daily, but certainly pertain to the byline on which it is written, which is Hassan Giordano. I can spell it for you if you need to. Hey, Ben, how you doing? Okay. Let's go.
So, for those who don't know, may have read DMV Daily, I know many of you have, a few months ago, right? Ben Smith, a recent Baltimore transplant from Kentucky, right? Came to college here, right? And a lot of people come to school to Baltimore and stay.
To
I have
law
no
school,
problem.
law school, went to law school.
Yeah, have no problem. I hate the fact when people say, "How dare you run for office? You're not from Baltimore." Catherine Pugh's not from Baltimore. She, she's still an elected official, and she has every right to be. She's been in Baltimore for God knows how long.
50 years.
You got to get beyond that, right? We do have to get beyond that. Baltimore natives just have a certain way of representing their neighborhoods and their communities, and they feel like outsiders shouldn't be declared as, I get that. So there's no knock with him coming here. But you come here, get involved in the political circles, right? And there was an election that happened where Felicia Porter, and because you were there at the election,
Indeed,
was riding with him, was a part of his quote-unquote ticket as the second vice chair. He ended up making a deal behind the scenes, behind her back, to vote for
Glover.
Antonio Glover, right, for second vice chair. It was the one vote that ended up turning the election. Yeah. Felicia lost, Antonio won.
Yes.
She's pissed, obviously, because she was riding for Ben like no another. So, nonetheless, kumbaya, we have this grand scheme of how we're going to move the Democratic Central Committee in Baltimore City forward with this 9-point agenda that he has. Great. I mean, he articulated it wonderfully during that. 3 months later, he's leaving already to become the executive director of the Democratic Party. And some have questioned, one, why should Maya Rocky Moore Cummins, who won based on the backs of black women in particular, especially those in Howard County, Baltimore City, and Prince George's. Number one, the first act you do is put a white boy in as the executive director instead of Eva Lewis, who many of them felt as a black woman and the political director of the Maryland Democratic Party would have made a great choice, or a whole lot of other black women or Latino women. That you bring in an individual who, number one, has a recent track history of stabbing a black woman in the back. And then number two, bringing somebody who not just recently said, I'm here for y'all for the next 4 years and I got a vision to lead us forward, only to leave 90 days later to take a higher position. So the question is, what the hell is going on in the Maryland Democratic Party?
Lord, you done made me defend Ben Smith on the air. So here we go. First of all, I have no defense of Ben when it comes to the Felicia Porter thing. Look, I was there that night. I was the one that told Felicia that he didn't vote for her. Yep. She thought he did. That was how slick he did it. And I had a private one-on-one conversation with Ben afterwards where I said, that ain't a good look. And he acknowledged that it wasn't a good look and said he wanted to do better. And so far he has, at least in my estimation. Now, in terms of leaving the job before the job is done, I think he's in for some well-earned criticism. However, I will say that if you really have a vision for transforming the Democratic Party in the state of Maryland, you're much better to execute it as the executive director of the party than as chair of the Baltimore City Democratic Central Committee. So in many respects, I mean, the professional advancement makes sense in that sense.
And
although,
it's a pay gig.
Right, yes, it is.
That he's leaving for is a paid gig.
Yes.
What he's doing now is a voluntarily.
That's true.
This would be my question. I see it time and time again with a lot of really young, hungry, energetic individuals that have some great ideas. Mm-hmm. Before you can move up through the ranks so quickly, you got to learn the job at hand. My concern is, one, you've been here 5 years. It doesn't mean anything. And now you're the executive director. An excellent springboard to take you where you need to go. Before then, you were student body president. Okay, so you knew your area. You'd gotten people to believe in you. And unfortunately, the legacy that you're going to be leaving in Baltimore City is that of stabbing a black woman in the back. I think, from me, and I don't have a dog in the fight, but for me, I think that on one hand, you see the advancement, the opportunity to put your vision into place. But my other concern is you've been here 5 years. You need to know the intricacies to really be able to put your vision in place to move it to the next level. I think maybe there could have been a position for him to be on a committee, for him to have a bigger voice, and for him to say, Mr. Smith, to sit down and say, hey, you know what? I really am excited. I'm very honored. But let me make sure I get this house in order first, because the problem that I have now is you sat down there, you burned bridges, you have hurt feelings, and now you've used it as a springboard to the next thing. Unfortunately, that's a hard reputation to overcome. Because the thing that happens a lot of times with politicians and people involved in the political world, sometimes it's not about the people, sometimes it's about them. And unfortunately, I think from what I'm hearing, that's a reputation that this young man is starting to gain. I don't know him like that, but from an outsider looking in, I met him a couple times, had nice conversations, but I don't know him and his moral character. But now it calls into question. This is an issue, if you ask me, that Maya Rockmore Cummings didn't need this being one of her first moves, and now people are questioning it. You know, she has the opportunity to be, and I'm not going to use your word, the darling. She has the opportunity. She has the opportunity to be a transformative figure in politics in the state.
Absolutely.
And you are always judged by your first impression as a lasting impression. And this being your first move, it's going to call. Now, do I think it may end up being a great move? I don't know. But it's obvious something that she's seen. Obviously, there's something in reference to this 9-point plan that she really likes. It's obvious something that's going on there. But, I mean, I don't know if I was in her shoes, if I would have made that my first real big official move. But you know what? The words of Barack Obama. There are consequences to all elections. She's the one in charge, and it's her decision. To me, it's the same thing with Mayor Pugh. She's the one in charge, and it's her decision.
Well, now that and that is, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ivan, because that really is an important consideration that you have to respect from Maya. And I'll say the same thing about Eva. I love Eva Lewis. I think she's an extraordinarily proficient political director of the Maryland Democratic Party, but she rode the wrong horse, okay? She supported the losing candidate. You do not get the job from the winning candidate when you supported the losing candidate.
Oh, she supported Kathleen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's how politics works. You know what I mean? To the victor go the spoils. And say what you want about Ben, but Ben engineered that victory for Maya. Maya, without Ben, would not have won that election. Now,
I don't, and I'm gonna tell you. I'm just gonna tell you what was told to me, right? Because I didn't know about this until 9 o'clock last night. My phone rang off the hook from a black woman who said, "You got to know this, Hassan. You know everything. You know what's going on." What are you talking about? I don't care about the Democratic Party. That's not my establishment. I'm independent. The hell with the Democratic Party. No, we need to tell you what's going on. And their criticism, number one, was they warned Maya because they're still upset clearly about what happened with Felicia. Right?
Fair enough.
That's fair enough. But they also said, why wouldn't you at least have an open process of interviewing applicants for the executive director position instead of just appointing it behind closed doors like that? Because this guy does not have enough experience. And what they were saying is that the political circles and the political powers that be are already pissed that the establishment feels, and you know this better than anybody, feels like they didn't want Maya. We know that.
No,
Ben Cardin all but endorsed her and begged for people to vote for her during that election that morning off the floor.
Oh,
right?
That's awful.
The establishment are the ones who typically raise the money for the party, or at least help them raise the money.
Yep.
So now she's up against that. And now you have somebody coming in who does not know those circles, who's not established in those circles. And people were saying that when he made those calls to whip the votes for Maya, that people in different counties were calling people in Baltimore saying, who the hell is Ben Smith and why is he calling me? Like, we don't know who this guy is. He's not an Elijah Cummings. He's not a Maya. He's not a well-known entity for them in Charles County to say, hey, Ben, oh, yeah, I'll vote for so-and-so because of that. Now, had you had Elijah calling, the congressman, now, he wouldn't do that. I don't think he would go that far for that type of, maybe not. But that's what they were saying is that he wasn't the one, but he did work hard for her.
Yes.
And he was advising her gubernatorial campaign, apparently, before she stepped aside. That's what I didn't. That's where that relationship apparently came from.
I never heard that.
Right?
Yeah.
And so...
Because they were with... Well, I'm not sure that's true because they wrote a lot of Ben's policy stuff from the very beginning, like a year and a half ago. So I would be surprised if he advised Maya's gubernatorial campaign. Maybe he did.
No, this came right from, what's the Tidemore, that group that they have?
Right.
Yeah, that one of their partners told me this today, that he was a part of Maya's advisory team, advising her during the early parts of the gubernatorial before she dropped out.
I'm sure Ben would like to know that. But so
yeah, that's before he went over to Ben Jones.
You cannot serve two masters. But no, I at the end of the day, no, that this was a race, and this is what's so fascinating about the chairs race, is that most races in a body of that type, those decisions are made, those votes are bought and sold long before anyone ever gets in the room. The voting is actually, kind of like the anticlimax. Everyone knew how it was going to go. But the Maryland Democratic Party chair's election is one of the few rooms I've been in where that election was won in that room. When Sheila Ruth, a white woman from Baltimore County, stood up and took the entire Democratic Party to account and said, you can't keep saying that African American women are saving this country by electing Democrats and you never put one in charge. Yeah,
that was powerful.
It was so powerful. And then for Maya to seal the deal with her remarks, which stood in such stark contrast to the nominating and seconding speeches of Kathleen and then Kathleen speaking, the energy in that room shifted. But I will say, had Ben, in his strategic vision, not been laying the groundwork for that to happen, we never would have been it. Like, he got her onto the launch pad, and make no mistake, she launched herself onto the moon. But he did set up the launch pad. So to some extent, it always kills me when people act so naive about politics, like, why would she pick Ben? Well, duh, that was probably part of the deal. I'm going to elect you chair. I want the ED's job. That's how these things are done. So to have, I admire her for being straightforward about it and not putting folks through a process, inviting people in, looking at resumes, having committee, when the die has been cast. You know what I mean? I respect her for saying, look, I'm the new chair. I need my executive director, my right-hand person, someone that I pick and know and am comfortable with. And the person that meets all that criterion is Ben Smith. You elected me president. It's my prerogative, and here he is. Same thing that Catherine's doing with the police commissioner. I think she's wrong about it, but it is her right,
Yeah. My question and my concern is, look, money. Point blank in discussion. Right. Is Ben Smith going to be able to have the ties within the Democratic parties to raise the money that they're going to need?
Well, see, technically, traditionally, it's not the job of the executive director to raise money. The job of the executive director is to run the party. The job of the chair is to raise money. And so she talked at length during her nomination speech about how much money she's raised for her own organization and the different folks that she has come in contact with and the success that she's been able to have with fundraising. So now she'll be put to the test. Maya Cummings is nothing if not a woman of her word. And if she says she can do it, I believe she can. It's not up to Ben to fundraise. It's up to Ben to make sure that staff is all rowing in the same direction and make sure that the party apparatus is running well. That's not really.
And that's the question, though, is because from the people that I heard from today, many of people who've been in that party for a very long time have a problem with now having to work for what they called, out of their own mouth, a kid who just came in on the boat in Baltimore 5 years ago. What was the boat that came in? I forgot the boat they called it. It was not the Mayflower or some kind of boat they said they referenced. I'm not going to have to answer to a kid who came in on the Mayflower to Baltimore just 5 years ago. Whereas though I know the party apparatus, Maya talked about fixing a structural problem in the party. That's not how you fix it by somebody who doesn't even know the process of the party. Was their exact words.
Well, I think that's a load of crap, quite frankly. It's a new day. Folks are uncomfortable with that. We've let folks like Sherrod Barnes and Cheryl Glenn and all the rest of them be in charge for far too long. I'm glad there's some new energy. Maybe Ben isn't the perfect person to do it, but God knows I almost want to institute a rule that if you have been doing it within the party for the last 10 years, you're ineligible to serve at anything for any reason. look at the Central Committee. 60% of it is new because 40% of those folks have been sitting around. I mean, God bless her, Arlene Fisher. I mean, why is she still on the Baltimore City Democratic Central Committee? If she knocks a door tomorrow, it'll be the first door she knocked. I mean, there are people that have been gotten comfortable within their positions, even unpaid positions. I mean, I love her to death, but poor Arlene, she wears that Baltimore City Democratic Central Committee pin everywhere. I mean, to the grocery store, to bed. I mean, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it. Especially not when you're not really working for it. And I'm not saying that she's not a committed, and I don't want to pick on her. There's a whole lot of other ones, but there's the old guard of this Democratic Party establishment that has run this party into a rut. And if we want some of this new energy, we need new faces.
And let's talk about that. One of the things that's been very interesting to me, first-time candidates, you sit down and you see the city. You have, a lot of time the electorate, you're looking with 70% of the city's African-American. Then you look at, a lot of the other, the rest of the city, and you normally sit down and say, okay, you have the black votes, you have the white votes. But what you have the progressive votes. And one of the things that you talk about, not just here in Maryland, but they talk about on a larger national scale, is the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And looking at the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, not only nationally, but locally in terms of the state and also in the city, how do you really see those two working together? And I'm asking you, both of you, because you both are very involved in this, and especially if you, Mark, being involved in the Democratic Party, because, my has the opportunity, once again, to be transformative, to really bring them together. Because if you sit down and think about her husband's the old school.
Yeah.
He is that, without a doubt.
Right.
And then you sit down and look at her, think she's done a great job of rebranding herself as that progressive person within the party to bring them together. And how do you do this? And do you feel, and I'm asking multiple questions, it's just the lawyer in me, I guess, but do you feel that this Ben Smith move is the first step in doing that?
Yeah, I think that, to a certain extent, she picked Ben because she has a level of comfort with Ben. She's in a new job. She needs to pick someone that she, that she feels comfortable with, that she's able to, say, okay, Ben, I know the party is running well, so now I can go do the work that I need to do. So
And that's but here's the real question, right? So apparently Ben is supposed to, now they've been around for years, right? And on, you see that now.
I ain't going with
and
it.
I
ain't going with it.
Come on now, that's how we do it around here. DMV Daily, baby, that's how we do it. So check this out. It's reported that Ben is going to offer up his resignation as chairman later this week in their executive committee meeting. Next week is the actual general membership meeting. The bylaws say that a special election will be held for the election of the new chair at the next cycle of the next general meeting. That could be next week, or it could be put off till January. But I'm almost certain it should be next week, right? Given the question now is who becomes the new chair, because you'll probably have first vice, second vice, or third vice chairman run for the chairmanship, or somebody on the executive team. And if they win, then it's a special election for their position. Yep. And then if they were somebody else, you see what I'm saying? So it could be a domino effect in terms of the new leadership of the Baltimore City Democratic State Central Committee. Some people have suggested to me today that they want Felicia Porter to run, but she is currently in the process of running for city council in the 10th district, which is rumored. Hasn't been anything official. Who do you think is going to be? Now, mind you, Monica Cooper ran against Ben this past time for chair and lost from the 40th district. Will she run again? It's reported that the first vice chair from the 43rd district, my district, Corinthia Barber, but I don't think she has the young progressives to be able to win.
Indeed, she doesn't.
So then how does that shake out? And who's going to be the next chair of the Baltimore City State Central Committee?
This is going to be the classic fight again, as it always been. A recurring theme is the old heads versus the newbies. That's how the vote broke down basically for chair. That's how the vote broke down for a lot of other positions, and that's how the vote broke down, quite frankly, between Maya and especially you saw that's how it broke down between Sherrod and Corey. You know, like the young folks were behind Corey, and the Gibson woman of the world were with Sherrod. You know what I mean? And there's a real generational split on that Central Committee. The good news is that the young folks are getting increasingly stronger, I think, and the old folks are transitioning to do some senior activism or something. So that's an important part of
Senior activism.
that's an important part of the equation. And I'm not saying like their talents and their experience are well needed, but in terms of leadership, like even though
The views and opinions of Mark McLaren are not that of anybody else on this panel for my great seniors
Well, let me
and
say-
elders,
Yes.
who I respect greatly and dearly, including Sherrod Barnes, a great supporter of DMV Dailies, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. So what I mean to say is that, you know, like even though Ben Jealous lost, there was an unprecedented amount of on-the-ground enthusiasm in Baltimore City for him.
Yeah.
You know, of that ground game and those folks and that was driven by and large, the young folks. And we got to keep that activity up because we've got another election in 2 years. We've got another election in 4 years. And it's important that we not let up. Build on the momentum that we created I mean, this momentum really even started 2 years before. Nobody thought, Hassan will agree with me, none of us thought that there would be the number of votes in the mayor's race 2 years ago that there would be. None of us built a universe for over 100,000 folks. We just weren't ready for it. And then
And
2 years
nobody
later,
thought we would steal it the way and y'all stole it the way y'all
God.
did either. But you know,
bitter party
say
of
that
one,
again.
bitter party of one. Your table is ready. But you know, so and then 2 years later with Ben Jealous, we had another awesome turnout. We are building a wave in Baltimore City, but we have to foster this wave, and the way to foster that wave is to put young, enthusiastic people in charge. Maybe Monica Cooper. She's not really all that young, but she has the energy and the outsiderness of young folks. So she might be a good choice.
Well, that's the question, and that's why I'm with the family. Call in right now, 410-819-2370. You got a suggestion on who should be the next chair of the Baltimore City Democratic State Central Committee. Call in. You can even text into that number, 410-819-2370.
Wait a minute, the call must have gone out to the state party apparatus because the second vice chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, Nicole Williams from Prince George's County, has just signed on. Nicole, what you doing on my show? Okay, love you.
Yeah, you know it went out. You know, as soon as we started talking about it, it went out. But that's a good question. I mean, I'm going to tell you something. What I wouldn't mind, and this is what I want to check the bylaws. There was a young man I spoke to today who I am very inspired by, great friend of mine, who recently ran unsuccessfully in Baltimore City for a position, who I think will be a great chair of the Democratic State Central Committee. Problem is, he's not a member of the Democratic State Central Committee. And the question is, because somebody told me that the chairman possibly, now that wouldn't make sense for an outsider to be able to be the chair of a body that you're not even a member of. So, I mean, I'll still do some research on that tomorrow. I'm waiting for my historian to hit me back with that.
Depending on what district he's in, he might be able to get appointed to a gender balance seat. And if he gets appointed to a gender balance seat, I believe he could run for chair.
But he can't vote. That's the thing. Gender balance can't vote. Their vote doesn't count.
No, they can't vote for appointments.
For appointments, right.
But they can vote in leadership races.
Right. But they just can't vote for appointments. But how would that work? Now you're the chairman of the party and you can't even vote for a leadership for
but see, this is the thing. Like in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, when a vacancy opens up, the entire Central Committee votes.
Right.
In Baltimore City, it's just
district.
Those 7 people in that district. So you really don't vote for anything anyway, unless specifically something happens in your district. So, you know.
Now, should we open that up, though? I mean, that's the question. Montgomery County and them, and it's not like they're so small.
No.
Many of them are bigger than Baltimore City in their delegation, to be quite honest. Should Baltimore City also open up its process to the entire Central Committee?
Folks should vote citywide because otherwise you get fiascos like, you know, that Barbara Robinson appointment where, you know, there were only 7 votes. one of them couldn't vote. Two of them were relatives of the
Just
person that was
running.
a candidate, and so it got down to or
Or the
even closer to
41st.
home. Look at the Jill Carter appointment. You know, it came down to like 3 ballots of 1, 1, and 1. One abstention, one for Jill, one for the old lady, and then they had to send it to Annapolis. And let the governor decide. It should be that the entire city central committee votes on it.
So who makes that decision? The Central Committee?
Yes, the city central committee
And
has
it has
to
to
change
be
their own bylaws.
ratified by the party.
Well, hopefully the city.
No, it wouldn't have to be ratified because that's something that other jurisdictions already do. It's the choice of Baltimore City. That would be something that I would push for. I'm going to make an announcement. I think I'm going to fly for this gender balance seat. I got to do it by tomorrow. I've really been
By tomorrow.
Yeah, I've really been stewing it around, but I think we need a voice from labor on the Central Committee. And if I get on that Central Committee, I'm telling you right now, I'm fighting to move the appointment process to being voted on citywide and not just by those 7 people. Because 9 times out of 10, one of those 7 is one of the candidates. Sometimes 2 of those 7 are one of the candidates.
Yeah.
And then a third of the 7 is the candidate's sister, daughter, father, or friend. And then it just gets down to just silly season. You're voting 1 to 1 or 2 to 2. There's no reason why, especially in Maryland, where there is no provision for a special election. So, for instance, well, I don't want to break any news, but there's going to be a vacancy announced in the next 30 days in the delegation. And so,
In the city delegation?
Mm-hmm.
Where's
and
the
so
vacancy
what's
coming
gonna,
from?
I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty.
Are you crazy? This is DMV Daily. We're supposed to break news.
I know, and we will, but not yet. Within the next 30 days, there's going to be a vacancy in the delegation.
Why?
Now,
What does kill somebody or what?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just wanted to make sure you wasn't going to jail. That's all.
Not yet.
Somebody
I know
dying.
a good lawyer
I've
if you
got
do.
my attorney right here.
Somebody sick and dying.
I've got Latoya Francis Williams running second chair. I got Ivan Bates in the first chair. I'm good. But no. So what? But what will happen is
Plus, you got the state's attorney for Baltimore City, so you definitely good. You definitely getting off on that one. I know you wanted to say it, so I can say it for you. Go ahead.
no. But what I'm saying and what's important to understand is that this person who is not even going to take office, 7 people on the Central Committee are going to decide who is an office holder for 4 more years. There's no special election.
Yeah, right.
If you get appointed, that's it until 2022. That's a ridiculous amount of power to give to 7 people, 2 of whom are related to the person, 1 of whom is the candidate, the other 2 of whom are, have a drug problem. Once you whittle it down, there's only one person qualified to make the
So what district
decision.
is this that this vacancy is coming up in? Can you at least tell us that?
I don't know the districts that well. Is it 4?
You a damn liar.
Hello? Caller, you're on the air. Hello?
Yeah, all right. Shh. He breaking up. So stay tuned for that because DMV Daily is going to break that
We
story.
will break
I'm
it.
going to get it out of him
We
at
will
some
break
point. That's going to be interesting. So before the legislative session even starts,
Somebody ain't
they're
going to
not
be
even
there.
going to be there.
Nope.
Are they getting indicted?
No.
Ah. Man, that's going to be interesting. Is it Kurt Anderson?
No.
I was wondering if somebody was on their deathbed.
Nah. We saw the delegate. I don't know nobody that old to be on their deathbed on this.
They ain't gotta be old.
I mean,
They
on
gotta
this
be old.
delegation.
Should just be sick.
That's interesting. Is it in the House or the Senate?
Didn't I say I'm not? If I say I'm not narrowing it down for you people. I'm telling you, I'm not getting in trouble.
Okay.
This was told to be in confidence. It's something very personal for people, and I want to be seen as trustworthy.
Okay, then that makes I can respect that. Yeah, I can respect it. Anything else, we'd have been here all night until you told us. But that is a good question. And we were at the delegations thing Saturday, and Kurt looked like he was so alone out there on an island by himself, all the way at the end of the table. Didn't seem like anybody from the delegation was particularly.
He looked like he
trying
had
to
gas or
be,
something. They were all
associated with them, right? And that was my guy. I mean, granted, Kurt is a very cool guy, right? At the end of the day, I mean, you can't. I'm not at any means justifying what he's been accused of, because I know one of the women personally who's a good friend. So that is unjustifiable. But nonetheless, this is a guy he's a party favorite, right? He's a party guy. Most people knew Kurt, were very friendly with Kurt, with all the delegation. And it was a drastic change on Saturday. It was like, again, he was way in the corner by himself. nobody was really kind of associated. And then he quietly got up out of there. At what point do you say, you know what? Yeah, I got elected, but it's clearly past my time. Maybe it's time for me just to move on.
Hello. Well, look, I will grant you that Kurt Anderson, when he is not assaulting women, is a very personable and sociable guy, okay? He's hard to dislike unless you're trapped in a room with him. And I'll grant that. But this is a man who honestly has disgraced his office. He should have stepped down a long time ago. If you'll remember, when they had the Baltimore City hearing on the mandatory minimums bill, and he did that whole thing of trying to fight the guy in the back, he's just he's been out of control for a long time. I have to remind him, when you watch Park and Recs, you're a state delegate, sir. You know what I mean? You're not a congressman, you're not a senator. You're have a seat. You're one of three, okay? And that's not to diminish the role of delegates. I love the House of Delegates. Hello, Delegate Stephanie Smith. I see you watching. Love you. But the point I'm making is Kurt got a little too full of himself in terms of who he was. And, and that reflects itself in your behavior. If you've decided that you can have anything you want and people have been telling you can have anything you want, well, then when you hear you can't have that, you beg to differ, and then that's when the woman gets thrown down and assaulted. This is how these things happen. We need to remind these elected officials that they are human beings just like all the rest of us, and they are subject to the same laws, rules, penalties, and obligations as anyone else. And I take this quite seriously because I'm the father of a daughter, and I would come looking for him. Okay, no question about it. I don't care if the whole Democratic caucus voted for him to be king of the frickin' world. I would find him, no question about it, and pull him up out of his house. From some of the things that people have told me personally that he has done to them, I would find him. So I take that very seriously and unapologetically so, and I don't speak that way lightly about anybody, but someone like that is a serial, we're not talking about, a little pat on the ass, although that's unacceptable in and of itself. This guy is a serial sexual assaulter. I take that very seriously. He's a disgrace to the House of Delegates, and he should resign.
Allegedly. As the lawyer, I want to make sure everything here, we have no actual, not being convicted, no factual proof, and just making sure that, allegedly these are the allegations that have been out there.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Now, what delegate did you say was watching?
Huh?
What delegate you said was watching?
Stephanie Smith.
Oh, I didn't see on it. Congratulations, Stephanie, for just having your baby.
We love you, Stephanie.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm telling you something. Those young delegates inspired me. A lot of them were last week. They were doing their down in Annapolis, doing their pre-session orientation for freshmen, and a lot of them were there Saturday. Well, a few of them were there Saturday. Tony Bridges, one of them, great guy. And Melissa Wells,
yes,
taking it all in, and you can tell these individuals aren't going to sit back and and I think Kurt even said that. He alluded to that. Oh, they ain't going to sit back and let us take our, be the first to speak, which had many people like, what? You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, they're young, so they're just going to grab the mic and who the hell are you to make me think, oh, since you've been here for a while, I'm going to let you have the microphone first. Right. The hell? And then a lot of people had a problem with, it's a city delegation meeting in town hall, but the first person to give a presentation was Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Johns Hopkins has absolutely nothing to do with the city delegation, but you give them the opportunity to give a 10-minute speech about how inclusive they are with the community until those nurses that were there stood up and read them the riot acts as they should have, which was hilarious to say the least, but it wasn't based off the issues that these people are having to address over there at Johns Hopkins at the time. So that was totally.
We have one caller, Richard's on the line.
Okay, I was trying to talk while I was getting this up going. All right, where we at? See, this is that whole fancy stuff I was.
Richard, get on here and help me. They're talking about my good friend Kurt Anderson.
Is this our Richard?
I think so.
Richard, welcome to the DMV Daily Show.
Hello?
Hello.
That's Richard.
Yeah,
okay,
Richard.
It's working.
What's happening?
Well, I like what y'all had to say so far about the Ben Smith situation. Hassan, thank you for adding more details.
Not a problem. Anytime.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, Son, thank you for the more details on the Ben Smith story. I did not know. He worked.
You did not know where? Richard? What is
Lord,
Kurt, what are you doing? You playing with Kurt?
I thought Kurt found you. Richard, hang up the phone and call the police.
What you say?
Hassan, thank you for the information on Ben. I did not know he works for Maya. I wanted to know what Ivan and really thought about the situation, like what he would do, since he ran as state's attorney and I think is going to be running for things in the future. What would be best, in his opinion, for the state Democratic Party and the Baltimore City Democratic Party?
Interesting question.
Get him, Richard.
Put him right on the spot.
First of all, I really like Mark's suggestion. Is something I really think is that you have to have the entire city vote. I think that's very important. There are a lot of people who don't understand. Right now, most of the people are insiders, and you're listening to insider, quote unquote, political baseball. And so, this person, that person, the people in politics, you have the friendships, the relationships. But to the outsider, look kind of crazy when you have 6 people voting to put this delegate in position. And, 2 of the people are the delegate, the candidate's sister and mama.
Right.
And so, we can't have that. Now, in reference to the Ben situation, look, like I said, I don't know the background. I don't know the story in reference to Maya and that relationship. I don't know everything that Ben brings to the table. I'm always concerned that you want to have a person as divided as the state and as divided as the city is in terms of the new guard and the old guard, so to speak. You want to make sure you have a person who can reach across and work with both and is able to energize the new guard, but make sure that the old guard still feels that they have a seat at the table. And if Mr. Smith is the one who she feels, then hey, far be it from me to sit down and criticize it at this juncture, at this point. I do feel that, whenever you have an election and with, Myra Rockmore Cummings, she was given a mandate to make change. And this is how she feels she needs to make change. I don't think I personally would have taken the risk on Ben, but I don't know him maybe like she does. I want to have someone with a little more experience in the 5 years. I could see maybe have someone a placeholder for the first 2 years, see how Ben's doing in Baltimore City, and if he's really implementing his 9-point plan, then you have him there going into 2020. But I'm not the one, but that's just a couple of my thoughts.
See, but this is my thing, right? When people told me this, when they called me about it last night, it's like your first reaction is so what? Like you going from an unpaid position to say, all right, I'm stepping away from this to become a paid position, right? To me, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
Why in the world I'm going to stay in something for free when I can not only get paid for my vision, but like you said earlier, have a bigger platform as the executive director of the entire state of Maryland.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, from a political standpoint, Maya comes from Baltimore City and won the chairmanship. And Baltimore City overwhelmingly voted for her. Mm-hmm. But as did a lot of African-American women, especially Howard County, Baltimore County, Prince George's County. Montgomery County went overwhelmingly for Kathleen, right? And then you got...
Maya got a grand total of 1 vote in Montgomery County.
Right.
And I'm still trying to track down who it is.
And that first vice is Corey McCray,
Yep.
which is also Baltimore City.
Yeah.
So as a political person, if I was first of all, for Maya, I would say the black women who helped you get you here, listen to their advice. And if they have said overwhelmingly they didn't trust this guy, I would at least say, let me look at somebody from a different region, right? Baltimore City is well represented with me and with Corey. Let me try to get an executive director, whether they're a black woman, a Latino guy from Montgomery County, somewhere that needs this representation or I may not have done well in to make inroads so everything doesn't seem so Baltimore City specific and make that my executive director as opposed to...
I'm going to tell you why I support Ben in this instance. It's because usually the way things have been done in the past is that the party elects the chair, and then the chair turns to the presiding officers of the legislature, Mike Miller and Mike Bush, and they pick the executive director. So the fact that Maya gave a hand to the face to Mike Miller and selected her own person, I don't care if it's who shot John. I'm for him.
Well,
I'm for him. I support him. That's the kind of context.
And what's that going to do for them, though? Because you still need Mike Miller. You still need Mike Bush.
Mike Miller
you
to
still
do what?
need Steny Hoyer.
I need
you
Mike
still
Miller to do
need
what?
them
Support
to
my
help
gubernatorial
raise
nominee?
money for the party.
Mike Miller has never raised money for anyone but Mike Miller and the Senate Democratic Caucus.
And the Steny Hoyer helps raise money.
Yeah.
Ben Cardin helps raise money.
Yes.
You already know they don't like you because they didn't want you there in the first place. You don't got to completely show them your ass and tell them, come on. At least extend. I'm not saying, let them name your executive director, but you can't just completely turn your back on them people either. They are the leadership of your party.
They're not the leadership of my party. Well, Mike Bush
What party do you belong to?
well, define leader. I mean, look, Mike Miller is only elected by 27 people, okay? I don't consider that a leader. I think to be a leader, you should have to I think a Central Committee member is more of a leader than the Senate president because at least a Central Committee member has gotten out there and put his name before the voters. I mean, Mike Miller
put his name before the vote. How do you think he got there as senator?
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing-
That's down there in Calvert County.
You letting personalities
Mike
define. I know you
Miller-
don't like the man.
This is policy.
Don't hate the player.
It's
hate
not
the
personal.
game.
It's policy. If I didn't like him personally, but he was doing the right thing by the working people across this state, I would shut my mouth. My issue is not with him personally. He's probably a cool guy. Same thing with Kurt Anderson. Just saying.
Can we talk about? I would like to talk about the potential commissioner Fitzgerald.
No.
Well, don't worry. Don't worry. We've got the A team in Fort Worth going
Right
over
now.
his
And that's
record.
what I want to talk
Going
about.
over his record with a fine-tooth comb.
And
You got to get up pretty early to trick this team, we said there, okay? Okay, let me stop. I actually have really good friends in that delegation, and I'm very proud you guys are going there.
Sharon Green Middleton is on the job.
Leave my girl alone. That's my girlfriend. Don't do that.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Sharon
We
Green
in
Middleton, you are my sister in labor, and I adore you eternally.
God help us.
Eternally.
So what we talk about with Mr. Fitzpatrick?
So here's my challenge, and I'm reticent in talking about this because
You got pink.
everyone knows where I am. It's called
nails?
bubble bath. Hello. We got someone on.
Oh, they want to talk about your bubble bath pink.
We got
nails.
Richard Elliott
Pink
on
bubble bath.
Richard Elliott was just on the line.
call back.
He had something else to say.
No. Look, one call per show, including Richard Elliott. Hold on. All right, I gotta bring it up. I gotta bring you up because I gotta keep going to the Facebook. That's more interesting watching our folks on Facebook and their comments than sitting on this page. Jason, leave the picture alone.
Mark was about to say something.
I forgot what I was going to say.
You were saying that.
So I'm reticent to talk
reticent to
too
talk
much
about
about this because, everyone knows of my relationship with this mayor and how much I adore her, and I do. But I think that she's handled this poorly in terms of this nomination, and I feel like there should have been much more of a process, and I urged her to have more of a process. But I think her feeling was, to a certain extent, the same way that Maya felt about Ben. She feels like what happens with the police commissioner, I'm going to be blamed for, rightly or wrongly. So let me make it all my choice. I'm not going to sign over my agency around this choice to someone else. When if that person fucks up, it's going to be back on me. No, if it's on me, then it's on me, and I'm going to make my own decision. And that's a high risk strategy, but it's one I have to respect to a certain extent.
So who's on the phone? Is this Richard?
It's Richard.
Okay.
One problem, when you call in, it doesn't say what the radio show's talking about. It's just Christmas jingles. So I have to infer what you all were last talking about. But in relation to the police commissioner situation, which even the Baltimore City delegation took as a joke during that town hall, and everybody was laughing about in the audience. How do you all think we could get a consensus pick? And where's Stanley Branford, the dude who ran for sheriff against Anderson? Like, his name hasn't even been floated. And I mean, he ran a campaign where you got, what, like 40-something% of the vote in the primary?
I like Stan Ranford a lot.
Stan is
Like,
a good guy.
do we have to bring from without, or can we promote from within? Because if we can't promote from within, what does that say about how Baltimore City people feel about their police leadership within the House?
Well, I actually rather from within. I mean, Fred Bielfeld was from within. Tony Barksdale, his chief deputy commissioner at that time, is from Baltimore. Great guy. They wrote a great crime plan. It got the numbers to where we had it under the Dixon administration, which then transferred over to the Rawlings Blake administration. That got us below 200 homicides for the first time in over 30 years. And then we just washed our hands from all of that and went on to green pastures with bats and everybody else. It's like we'd rather go out of town to bring in our commissioner when we have homegrown people right here, if you ask me, that can do the job 10 times better than somebody from out of town who doesn't know the terrain. This is what we talk about with Baltimore. If you're not from Baltimore, you understand. Baltimore is a very different city than anywhere else in America. And if you don't understand the landscape of Baltimore, coming in initially, not saying you've been here for a while, but coming in initially, it's going to be hard to govern a police department when you don't even know the lingo of Baltimore.
Yeah.
You don't even know what yamin means. You think it's some Chinese food. I mean, seriously.
Let me tell you something.
Because you're from out of town, too. I don't want to hear.
I've lived from pillar to post. Ain't nothing that daggone unique about Baltimore. Y'all stop stuff that shit.
That's exactly why we've never accepted you, because you don't understand.
Because you got yakni and mambo sauce. There's nothing that daggone particular
and
about.
half and half.
Extra egg.
You should know because you paid the voters off in 2016 with a chicken box and a half.
Are we back to
And
that
ketchup,
already? He is so.
Go
He is
ahead,
tighter than a tick twat about an election 2 years ago. Huh?
Oh, we still got somebody old? Where they at? I don't see them. All right. They ain't on there, buddy. Oh, let me go here. They just ended.
Let me give you my point of view. And being involved in the criminal justice system, I will say this. I've had cases all around the state in a number of parts of the United States of America. Baltimore's unlike anything. Because there's a certain background, there's a certain culture, there's a certain trust and distrust, a couple things that have happened. Since 2015, the Freddie Gray situation has uprooted and destroyed the police department, but also the corruption that was already there has been destroying the police department as well. So two things. One, if you're going to have a new police commissioner, you want them to have somebody who understands the officers, what they've been going through in Baltimore City, what's going on now. But you don't necessarily, and the question is, do you want them to still have been in the police department while this was happening, or do you want them to have been on the outside? You know, my personal feeling, I would like to see somebody who's been in BPD, understands the culture, understands what they're dealing with. The culture meaning the good officers and also the culture of the bad officers. The cesspool of corruption that has allowed some of the bad officers to be able to grow and corrupt other officers who potentially want to do a good job. But also you want somebody who's been on the outside to understand how the community sees the police and understand how to work with the community. Now, I do agree, once again, I always have to go to Barack Obama. Elections have consequences. And I understand why Mayor Pugh has done what she felt she needed to do. If she's going down with the ship, this is going to be her selection.
That's right.
Now, the other interesting thing is, she may not be able to have her selection. That's right. Because the city council may say no. Then if I'm her, that's the political coverage that she needs.
That's right.
Because she can sit down and say, I tried. Right. You guys didn't want. That person there would have been successful for us. So in some ways, it may almost be an evil move. I mean, a genius move, an evil genius move, because now everybody's saying, oh, she didn't do this, she didn't do that. Okay. But you know what? She is the mayor, and there's nothing that says that she has to do it. But when you sit down and look at the city council approves or they don't approve. If they don't approve, go back to the drawing board, select someone else. If this person does a good job, great. If this person does a terrible job, she's able to say, I knew it was best. I did it A, B, C, and D, and you didn't even allow us to do it.
Well, the city council ain't got the testicular fortitude to tell her no. trust
You know
to
what?
believe that.
I don't think that's
know.
They ain't got it.
know. It's
I
gonna
don't
be
They ain't gonna
interesting.
tell Jack Young no. I told you about
I don't
that,
think
and you
that's true.
learning.
I
They
don't think
scared.
that's
That
true.
man got them people shook down there.
There's a few of them that ain't scared. Now, maybe it's not a majority yet,
But it's
but
not a
there's
majority.
few, and maybe not yet. But look, so two things. Number one, again, I reiterate, Baltimore is not unique. Ivan, do not cover up for Hassan. I've lived in Philly. I've lived in Atlanta. I've lived in LA. I've lived here.
That's your
Every
problem.
city is different, but there's nothing unique about Baltimore.
Oh,
like
it's very much.
if you didn't go to Poly, you don't know not about Baltimore. Well, that's a
Family.
bunch of crap.
Everybody from Baltimore.
Of course
we're
they
at,
think
no,
there's
no, no.
something special.
We're at 2421 Maryland Avenue. We leave
Come
out of
through.
here in a couple minutes.
Come through.
Come show him
Come
what's
through.
unique about Baltimore.
Come through.
I bet you he won't say that no more.
it
The
wouldn't-
views of Hassan Giordano being charged the code.
It would not be the first
Not the
time they
views
was
of
coming to the
Applebee's.
studio to get me, and I ain't been knocked off my stool yet. The point I'm making is,
We have-
number one, there's nothing unique. Number two, the last thing I want to say is, with all this cesspool of corruption in the Baltimore City Police Department, the next commissioner, I want to have been sunning himself off the coast of Namibia during the gun trace task force. I don't want him anywhere near Baltimore when all that crap went down. I don't want any internal candidates. No, thank you.
What in the world? I thought I was getting them. Are they online?
No, you just pick somebody else up.
Picking him up, Hassan.
Hello? They ain't on there. I hear Christmas music though.
We're working out the kinks, y'all.
Yeah, this is that virtual call-in.
No, this is what I will say. When you say they're different, when you sit down and look at some of the individuals that are involved in some of the crime that we have and we see in the city, when you go to the county, in the county, you don't have the police officers whose cousins or whose boyfriends or significant others or someone in their family is quote unquote involved in what the culture was
right.
going
Hello?
on in that regard.
Here we got the call in.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on with the DMV Daily Show.
Yeah. This is Douglas Stewart, living in Washington, D.C., back and forth from Bmore in D.C., from another state.
All right. Thanks,
And
listen.
I'm trying to tell everybody about the national engineering of Republican racism that is dealing in the courts and with the police department that got those black cops tricked into robbing their black brothers by the white cops. And then they killed the black cop to keep him from telling the truth, revealing who the leaders were. I'm in Washington, D.C. right now under a court order that's trying to say I'm incompetent to stand trial so I can reveal D.C. cops doing the same type of stuff in D.C.
Wow. So what's going on here in Baltimore isn't unique. It's happening right down there in Chocolate City.
Yeah, it's happening in Chocolate City, but it's happening worse in areas outside our areas where the Republican Party have more control.
Ah. Okay.
This is what I will tell
Yeah,
you.
but one of the
did you
biggest
hear
things
your
in my
voice?
life, I've been trying to get the murder of my father, Juan Edward Stewart, his grave dug up, and the cops that killed him prosecuted because they kept the casket closed so they couldn't prove that he was murdered by him.
And where did this happen?
Juan Edward Stewart, out of the Air Force, buried in Ohio.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, my brother.
Got a lot going
Yeah,
on.
and the D.C. courts are working for the Republicans. They're trying to shut me up, and they're trying to say I'm incompetent at 59 years old, a chess master, ex-professional athlete, as good as Ray Lewis, could have played better tennis than Arthur Ashe, could have boxed with George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. I don't know about Mike Tyson, but I could have hit Muhammad Ali and George pretty good. Also played tennis, pitched no-hitters, and was a champ, but they put me in prison because I wouldn't obey them and go to Ohio State College and play with Art Seaster, who played for the Baltimore Colts.
Yeah.
You live a good life, my brother. John.
Well, if you don't live no more, you don't live today.
Yeah, I got that right. What were you saying?
You know, when you look at what's going on in terms of understanding, quote unquote, the criminal element, the group of individuals that are out there committing a crime in the city, there's just something that's going on in terms. There's no hope. There's no belief that they're going to either be held accountable. But you also sit down and look at the gun trace task force. What that told individuals, if you're involved in a criminal activity, who cares what you do? Because the system is going to support itself. The officers are going to rob you. Therefore, you don't have any respect for the system. So I think the next police commissioner has to understand what they're totally dealing with. And it's hard to understand if you've never been involved and you've never really seen it. And that's one of the things to me where I say it's totally unique. When I go to Baltimore County, kids are like, oh, no. They want to take a plea. Baltimore City, they can have you on videotape, and they don't want to go ahead and take a plea. It's something I have never seen in my life. The same kids, don't let the feds grab you. The same kid that's called for a handgun in Baltimore City, the state has it, they're going to trial. And the feds will say, you know what, I'm going to give you 3 years instead of 5 years. They're going to snitch, and they're going to be happy to take the 3 years. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life.
See, ain't nothing like Baltimore. You see you talking over here talking about. They know when to snitch, and then they know how to create stop snitching. This is Baltimore like none other. Ain't that right, Carmela Anthony? Anyway, all right, we about to wrap it up, y'all. It's our time. 6:30 is upon us, even though we was a little late, thanks to somebody over here, Mr. Not Unique. Yeah, I guess that time must be from Not Unique as well. Huh? Oh. Is that from your Philadelphia days or what?
My nail polish was drying. Okay, I can't get pink nail polish all over the Uber.
You and these damn Ubers. We need somebody to pick up Mark McLaren every day at 4 o'clock. Not even 4:30. 4 o'clock, and make sure he gets to the studio.
And I would be ever so grateful. And I would be careful to give God the honor and the praise.
Well, we're going to continue to give the honor and the praise and the glory as we return back to the airwaves every day, Monday through Friday, right here on DMVDailyNews. 5 to 6:30 p.m. is the new time. I see y'all. Y'all have shown us love today. Make sure you return back tomorrow. It's going to be even hotter tomorrow. Here it is, DMV Daily for my man Jason in the back, the producer, co-host Ivan Bates, Mark McLaren. I'm Hassan Giordano, and we out.
Free Keith Davis.
Yeah.
Going into the second season with it.
Yeah. We're going to do it all day, every day.
That's right.
Keep come home.
That's right. We got to cover that trial, too. I mean, cover it down there.
The book he's reading is so the text looks so good. Oh, well, that's because he got young eyes.